In this episode, I have a Nakamichi DR2 cassette deck. This is a 3-head cassette deck with discrete heads, so a separate record and a separate play head. Similar to the Dragon, but does not have the auto azimuth, but does have the little plastic wheels for adjusting it manually. Anyway, this one here, talking to the client, he says the speed is changing, so I'm suspecting probably belt and possibly a motor. Let's check it out. This time I have a Nakamichi DR2 cassette deck. Don't know anything about it. Let's check it out and see if it works. Motor sounds awful slow at coming up to speed. This is a 3-head discrete deck. If we look at the heads, you'll see that there's a separate head, record, and playback head. They're separate. Most 3-head decks combine them as a single unit. This one here, they've got them as discrete heads. These adjustments here are for your azimuth and I think the zenith adjustment. There's 2 adjustments. One for the record head, and the other for the playback head, so that the heads can be adjusted. And they're just adjusted, using a screwdriver to tweak them. I'm not going to turn it here, but that's what you do. You turn the screws to adjust them with your alignment tape, of course. We'll check the alignment on this. That slow start up like that kind of bothers me. I'm thinking maybe the mechanism needs to be lubricated a bit. It just seems that they're taking a while to come up to speed. So I spoke to the client and he confirmed what I figured. It's a little slow at starting up. And I believe the reason it's a little slow at starting up is probably because we have a belt that's slipping. This one uses a conventional motor. It's a belt drive. I think probably the capstan belt might be slipping a bit. So we're going to pull this one apart and lubricate it and probably change out the belt on it. We'll have to see if I've got one, but hopefully I'm going to be able to find one for it. But we'll start with that. It's not gummy. It's not like it's stretched big time, but I think it's slipping a little bit. But we'll certainly check that out and lubricate the capstan shafts and possibly the motor as well. But let me get the deck out. We have to start by removing the actual tape deck mechanism. We'll start by removing these 2 screws on the bottom. This should remove this plate. That's 4 screws actually. Now the deck should lift out complete as one unit, and it should unplug from the main board too. Should be a couple plugs on here that I can undo, like this one and this one over here and this one down here. I should be able to unplug the entire unit and remove it from the rest of the electronics. I think I got all the plugs out now, and then this whole unit should just lift out. And we got one ground screw here to take out. And one more plug over here. Okay, now the deck is completely free from the rest of the chassis. Of course, the thing that differentiates this one from a Dragon is that on a Dragon, these adjustments were made by a motor. There was a motor assembly in here that would actually adjust, and of course the circuitry to drive it, but there was a motor that would drive these adjustments on playback. That's the big difference between the two of them. This one here, the belt does not appear to be slipping. The belt's actually in pretty good shape, so I have a feeling it's probably the motor that's given up the ghost on here. It's slow at coming up to speed. So you may have to take this motor out and pull it apart and lubricate it. Just going to apply power to the motor and just see how it speeds up, how it runs. But that's the complaint, is that the speed is changing. Two more screws that hold this motor in over on this side. One here. And the other one here, I believe. Where's that one have to come out? That one doesn't have to come out, I don't think. This one here has to come out up here instead. And that should lift the motor assembly out. To cut this zip tie over here. I didn't need to take this one out, so I'm going to put this one back in place for this switch. Incidentally, if you're just changing the belt, you can do it from this state. But in this case, I'm going to lubricate the motor because when I spin the motor by hand, it stops immediately. There's some drag on the bearings in the motor, which I have to address. That belt doesn't appear to be in bad shape. The motor is not... yeah, that motor is pretty stiff. I think we gotta lube the motor, gotta pull the motor apart to do that. Get some oil into the actual bearing itself for the motor because it's pretty stiff. I think that's where its fault is on this one, is the motor itself is shot. So let's just try to remove the motor. To open up these motors, we're just going to pry the metal a bit at the back so that I can get a screwdriver or something in there to pry it open. And we should be able to pop the back off this thing like I've done many times before. If we can pop the back off it, I can lubricate the bearings in the back, which is where they I can always, like, there's no problem getting oil into the front bearing. That's not a problem. It's the back bearing that you got to get oil into as well. There we go. So the back pops off just like that, and usually push the mechanism through. I got to get the pulley off the front, so we'll just use the side cutters to kind of pry it. I may have to heat it up. I'm probably going to have to heat this thing up just because I don't want to bend the shaft. We're going to use the heat gun, put some heat on the brass to expand it, and then that'll hopefully pop the pulley off, no problem. See, if you heat it up, it comes off just like that. Now I can push the bearing through, and oh, I got to take off this, got to unsolder that ground strap there. Heat up the iron. We'll take that ground strap off, and I can just push the entire motor through. Now it is. Push the motor through. Okay, so there's the motor apart. I'm gonna put some oil into this back bearing here. This is a sintered bearing, so it'll soak up the oil. Same with this bearing here. Just to move the brushes out of the way so I can get the motor back into the back bearing, get the shaft back into the back bearing. We'll do the same for the front bearing. This time I should be able to just pop this through like that. that's a little better. Oh, that's a lot better now. Okay. Looks like we may have freed it up a bit. Let's just try popping this thing back together and see how it spins when I put power to it. That seems to spin a little bit better. Get a power supply going here. It's set for 12 volts, which is what the motor will be. It will be a 12 volt motor for sure. Ah, good. It's starting right up. So that's the motor taken care of. We're going to also, of course, lubricate the bearings on caps and shafts. Okay, I got another belt here. It's roughly the same size as the other one. I just realized I got to put this shield back on. This is a magnetic shield. It's called mu metal. It's to stop the magnetic influence from the motor from being picked up by the heads.
That one goes there. This one goes over here. This gray one with the white plug goes here. I'm not mistaken. And the last one goes over here. I think that's all the plugs. That should make it work.
Okay, new belt's in place. Mechanism mounted again. Let's see how it starts up. Remember, it was starting up really slow before. That sounds a little better. Sounds a whole lot better, actually. Now, the belt that I put on is not the exact belt. This is the old one here. It's not the exact belt, but it's pretty close to being it's pretty darn close. As far as what I had in stock, it's as close as I've got to that belt. It's slightly thinner. It's about 1 millimeter thinner than this one, but I think it's probably I think it's probably okay. Alright, that was recorded in dB accent. Maybe it was OBC. Yeah, no more of that starting up slow. Oh well, this one here I think is as good as I'm going to get it at this point without getting the exact belt for it. So I'm going to have to leave this one now, and I'll talk to the guy that owns it and see whether we want to go and try and find the exact belt for it. As I say, it's the closest I've got in stock is what I've put in it. So we may have to revisit this one and change the belt if I have to order one in, but that's all I'm going to do on this one tonight. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.